All right, so we're COMP3026, and it's application security programming, and we just did a deployment with Visual Studio to Azure. A nice presentation from Aaron in the previous video that he talked about how to deploy to Azure. I'm actually in my VM right now, and we're going to talk about this a little bit. So again, economies of scale. So Stephen says, and I like to hear feedback. Like one of the Stephen Wilson here, he says, hey, Tom, my view is, and correct, I'm just paraphrasing, my view is, what, it's not cost effective. It doesn't make sense for me to run a Visual Studio in a VM when we're paying, per hour. It doesn't make any sense, kind of thing. Why would we do that, right? And in a small environment, if you're an indie developer, 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 people, maybe it doesn't make sense, right? But think about the outlay. What we talked about, Aaron's presentation talked about this whole capital expenditure model, CapEx. And again, bigger companies, Bell Canada, RBC, I'm using those as an example, the banks, government services, right? They're moving away from a CapEx model, slowly, especially some of these older ones, into an OpEx model, operating expenses, because they've got a glut of employees compared to the average company, a medium-sized business or even a small-sized business. So for you to buy and deploy and manage, maintain, right, upgrade, image, thousands of devices out there with the same, application as an example can be quite costly and difficult, right? You need administrators and so on. This way, you create an image, you work with Visual Studio, Microsoft to create your custom image. Remember, we created a gallery. We took from a gallery and created our image, our VM. We can create our own custom VM. We don't have to choose from the gallery, right? And if I create my custom VM, I can deploy anything I want to it. I grab a Visual Studio deployment. I can grab the package. I can use it as platform as a service, as an example. I can go as far as I want, right? Or I can take an appliance from the gallery like we did and do that. There's different options, right? So obviously for us, if I was in an enterprise or even a small to medium-sized business and I wanted, let's say Stephen and Stephen were both my developers, right? And we all wanted to develop, let's say 4 or 5 of us, all wanted to develop on the same platform. And you know what? We didn't have company equipment because they're employees. I don't expect them to use their equipment. I got to buy equipment. So I'm going to lay out for at least 4 or 5 people, let's say a couple grand each at minimum for a decent machine for deployment, for development, right? Or immediately, I don't have to do that right away, right? I can hang back and not to kind of spend that money right away, but get them running, right? Get them running, yeah.
It would help for telecommuting. If you wanted to work from home, you could just dial into your VM.
That's it. You're ready to go. You just turn it on, right? Hopefully you haven't had it on the whole time. Or if you're working for a company who has a deal with Microsoft, it may not matter, right? People just leave it on, right? And they have a deal, so they don't spend it. If it's not, there's no activity. If it just hangs there, and this is what Microsoft's developing right now. They're working on if your VM doesn't do anything, if it's just sitting there idle, right? It'll turn off by itself. You can kind of make it so that it goes dormant, right? Which I think is where they're moving towards. Now it doesn't match the model right now, but as there's more competition, think about right now. We're just talking about Microsoft. We haven't touched on the other 2 big ones, right? Google, and we haven't touched Amazon, right? So, yeah.
NVIDIA is also another one.
There's another. Okay, so then there's other ones that are going to come out there, right? So think about Google and Amazon, right? They're very competitive. They're trying they're all 3 platforms and competing against each other to try and lower the prices. Right now, we're kind of in the beginning. Think about how cell phones used to be 10 years ago. They were quite expensive. It was billing by the minute, and there wasn't an unlimited anything back then with cell phones. It was pay as you go, right? Well, this is where we are now with cloud. What about tomorrow when there's so much competition, and it's not just the big 3 that we're talking about, but a bunch of other services that are out there that provide a very similar service, especially with open sourcing right now, which is huge. And I think there's going to be a way that the costs are going to come down per user. You don't have to worry about buying an expensive laptop as long as you have. And here's where it comes back. We're kind of swinging back around again. If you have a decent internet connection, right, you can connect to the web, which eventually will be pervasive. It will be more pervasive than cellular networks, right, out there, Wi-Fi. Think about this. You won't need to have your smarts in your machine. Your smarts can be on the web. Your smarts can be in the cloud somewhere. And that's another model. And then we'll probably swing back again one day, and our smarts will be in our head, right? But for now, that's how it goes, right? We keep on swinging back and forth. Client-server model, remember how it was before? The client was a dumb client, terminal, right? And the server was mainframe, right? It's kind of the same now, right? Mainframe, cloud, terminal, client, same, right? So we're shifting back and forth. If we shifted back to almost like this idea of the smarts being in your machine, right? And the machine in front of you. And we're moving back and forth. So that's kind of the answer to that one. I think, and there's arguments against both ways. Like there's still an argument to say, depending on the sizing, then you choose to have your smarts in your machine in front of you, right? To have your local version of Visual Studio or whatever you're going to use. People feel more comfortable with it. They're not used to that model because they've learned to develop locally forever. That's how we've grown up. It's like, but imagine the students of tomorrow. They've never developed locally. They've always developed on the cloud. That's a different mentality, right? Yeah.
It's also a balance. It's not all or nothing on one side or the other. Right?
Correct.
When you develop a web app, you do a lot of server-side stuff, but the more you can offload onto the client's machines, the less you have to pay for it too, right? There's a balance between them. There's a hybrid model in between.
And that's right. And that could be the other solution as well, the hybrid idea, right? All right, so we talked about deploying. I want to talk about one more deployment option. So let's say, as an example, Visual Studio, this is one deployment option. You saw the workflow that Aaron went through. You went deploy an app, and from here I've got a Hello World app, and if I want to kind of publish to it, I just kind of click publish. I have an app that I kind of deploy, but I want to deploy it via GitHub, right? Let's talk about that option, because this is one that I'm also going to ask you to think about as well, right? So I'm here in my VM, and I'm gonna shut this down for a second. This Visual Studio image right now, and this is my server manager. That's interesting that came up. I never brought that up, but let's bring it down anyway. So I've got my VM going, but like I said, I have an instance of, let's say, I'm using GitHub, and here's my GitHub. I'm on the VM. I want to deploy. I want to create a new repository, right? And my new repository is we're going to call it, Tom's Web App, right? Tom's Web App 2, whatever, right? Is that a check mark? I think it's a check mark. I think it is. Yeah, it's a check mark for the next. Tom's Web App is probably just as fine. So I'm going to kind of create my repository. So there's Tom's Web App, right? And I have a bit of a URI that I'm going to be using, right? And now I want to deploy Visual Studio 2013, and I want to create it kind of separate. So I'm going to go New Project. Here's Tom's Web App. We're going to call this Tom's Web App 2. Actually, yeah, Tom's Web App 2. Doesn't matter. So there I am. I'm going to choose, in this particular case, I'm going to go to the web. I'm going to choose ASP.NET Web Application, and I'm going to press OK. I'm creating a repository, but I'm not going to do this option. So I'm not going to choose host on the web right away. And let's suppose I don't want to use MVC or whatever. I'm just going to use just kind of do a Hello World app with an empty app. Right? Doesn't matter. If I want to do MVC, I could do this as well. Either one works fine. Right? Let's actually, just for this, because we're doing MVC, I'll just choose MVC again. It doesn't matter. It'll be the same one that Aaron deployed. Right? I'm going to press OK. Right? But I'm not automatically deploying to the web. I'm just deploying locally, and I'm connecting to GitHub. So this is a different workflow. There's an advantage here you're going to see in a second, right? And you might say there's a disadvantage as well, right? Each workflow, and this is what this Azure stuff allows you to do, it really depends on what you want out of it, right? So what I'm going to show you after this finishes creating the project, and again, I'm using a 7.5 gig VM with, I think it's a single core. I'm not sure if it's 2 core. I didn't go that high. I can't remember. So once this finishes creating their project one day, this is something where, again, I would say where Stephen's words are ringing in my ears. We're like, it's a little slower than normal. Yeah, it is. It is slower than normal. And I fully expect that. I understand that it's going to be that way, right? Okay, so I've got my web app kind of idea. It's going to try and produce insights, which are going to fail, which is fine. I could have probably said no to that. I just didn't see it. I forgot.
I think by default it's unchecked.
I'm going to go, when this is ready, I'm going to go into Team Explorer and connect myself up to make some changes. I'm going to kind of record my changes. And if you notice, I've got, let's go here. I've got quite a few changes that I've made. I also want to make sure that in my, I don't have any untracked files, because unless I want them to be untracked, because there's something that I don't want to share on GitHub. All right. If you notice, my first time I have a configuration setting that I have to put in, right? Because I haven't deployed to to GitHub before on my VM, so I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to kind of go in there because so here's my username, and here's my email address. Okay, sure. I'll wait for it to catch up because it's trying to do a couple things at once. Okay, I'll do that too. And now that I've done that, I can do a commit, right? Just like before. So let's go back into Home, go to Team Explorer, and my commit is going to say created base Visual Studio ASP.NET MVC project. Whatever I want to put in there, right? Here's my commit. I say yes. I'm going to save everything just like you do locally. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go to Home, Unsync Commits, and I'm going to put in my URL, right? So here's my URL that not that one. Not that one, Tom. I meant to get my URI from here. Sorry. My bad. And I want to go back to here and just wipe that out. Put it in. There we go. Okay, so I've got my URI for Tom's web app, and I'm going to click Publish. When this completes, it's going to ask me to log in. So here's my username. It's only for the first time, as you guys know, and my password.
A lot of stuff's free to do.
I like it too. Okay, so now I'm good to go, right? So I'm connected to GitHub, right? So if I go back to GitHub and refresh, right, then I'm going to see that I've deployed my web app, my MVC web app on GitHub. Okay, so I want to do it this way this time, as opposed to the other way that Aaron showed us. How do I do it? Well, I got to go to Manage Azure. I go to Manage Azure. Let's just search for that. Azure. Come on. Here it is. Click on this. And again, I'm using Internet Explorer. One day it'll be Microsoft Edge, hopefully.
Is that the name of the new one?
Yeah. That's for Windows 10. It's coming out. It should be coming out in July, from what I'm hearing, right? So we'll see how it goes. All right. So here I am. I'm in Azure, and I'm going to go into Web Apps, and I've got a bunch of them that are stopped right now. I've got one that's kind of running. I'm going to stop this one too, just because I don't want to, utilize my credits for no reason. Although they don't take up a lot of space. I'll be honest with you. These ones. Yeah. They're all free, pretty much. Okay. I'm going to kick off a new one from here this time. So I'm doing it the other way around. And instead of doing from a gallery, which I totally do, we'll talk about gallery install as well. We actually did one. We did one with WordPress last time, right? For the first day we got together. We'll do one that does like a quick create. Okay. So here's quick create. I want to create a new deployments. I want to say Tom's web app. See if it works. Tom's web app, and of course it doesn't. Web app 2. That's good. Tom's web app 2. I'm going to continue choosing East UL, and instead of free, I'm going to choose, if I can, which is not allowing me to for whatever reason right now. It should be Azure Pass, which is fine. Actually, I think it's because I'm choosing the wrong one. If I go here, then Azure Pass is the one I'm going to use. I'm going to click on this Create Web App. And all it does is, once it creates the web app, it creates a container for my web app, location for my deployment, right? All right, so I'm good. It's running, but there's nothing on there. It's empty. So if I was to run this thing right now and click this button, Tom's web app 2, you're going to get nothing, right? Let's take a look. So there's, my app has been successfully created, but I got nothing, okay? Okay, so now, next step. I want to, instead of clicking on deploy, right, or publish, I'm going to click this little button here to go into my dashboard, right? And on the bottom it says integrate source control. Take a look how slick this one is, right? I can choose whichever one I want. I'm going to choose GitHub as an example and click next. Okay, waiting to authorize, retrieving your GitHub information. Look, here's all my GitHub repositories, and I'm going to go to Tom's web app. This is the one right here that I want. I'm going to deploy the master branch and click on next. I'm going to wait till this is deployed. It's refreshing, right? This is why this is slick. You'll see why I like this option as well, right? And when it finishes, right, let's generate the deployment script. And I think Jean-Luc, he's one of the guys that will appreciate this because he likes kind of auto-updating kind of features like this. You'll see what it does. It's awesome, right? When it finishes deploying. What was that?
So anytime you alter your repository, it's going to automatically grab.
You got it. Got it. So I'm working with this thing. I'm modifying my repository. Any change, my website's modified immediately, right? It's perfect, right? So let's just wait for this to deploy, and I'll show you how this works, just to prove it out to you guys, right? Because right now, what it's doing is taking everything from GitHub and sending it across, deploying it to Azure this way. So again, there's multiple ways of deploying. This is a favorite of people who want some, you know, they want to deploy from their repo as opposed to right from Visual Studio, right? So they don't have to click that publish button every single time. They just have to do a commit. So the workflow works like this. I do my stuff, I commit to GitHub, and as soon as I commit and sync with GitHub, the site's updated. I don't have to go commit to GitHub, and now I'm going to publish, right? And now my site's updated. So it's an extra step that you're saving. So I'll let that do its thing. And that's why I like it. I like it for that reason alone, right? So this is just another way of doing it. So you create your container first, and you do it the other way. And by the way, there's other options as well for deployment, right? So for you guys, for your assignments, when we deploy, right, all your assignments will be deployed on Azure, right? That's the way we're going to do it, right? I want you to try and work. I know there's going to be some, I said I'd like you to work right from your VM, right? It's a good experience. You may hate it, like Stephen hates it, right? I'm putting it out there, right? And not just Stephen, but other people too. I can't just single out Stephen. You hate doing it because it might be slow, or from a development perspective, you don't like it. But what I'm asking you to do is try and use it, and you know, that way you have the experience of doing it, even if it's a pain in the ass, because we've done traditional. That's interesting. We've done traditional deployment, and I wonder why that is. That's the first time it's happened to me today. But then again, see, whenever you do it in front of people live, it's fantastic, right?
Camera going.
Yeah, you get the camera going and it's good. I'm not sure why it failed, because locally, if I run this thing locally on my VM, right? If I run this thing here with Internet Explorer, it should run just fine. So I haven't made any changes to Tom's web app.
Did you commit everything?
Yeah, otherwise it wouldn't have got. It went to GitHub already, right? So there's nothing there. Like, it's like literally just a base project, right?
I noticed
I may have made a mistake. Yeah,
I had to redeploy it again, like recommit it again,
that's fine.
because it was missing some files, and that's why.
That could be it too. It could be that I forgot to include.
You could have committed, then like built it,
Yeah.
and then it did something.
So I'll wait for this to happen. But again, the idea here is I'd like you to try. Okay, even if it eats up your credits for the month, we only meet once a week. All right, think about this: once a week, 4 times a month. Let's say 5 times a month max. We're here for 3 hours. Even if you were to run your VM, a super powered VM for 3 hours, right, and you shut it down at the end of the class, right, and then run it at home if you need to run it from home and check it out, you still have plenty of credits if you don't choose the most powerful VM in the world, right? Like if you just choose something like a quad processor or something crazy like that, quad core processor with 16 gigs of RAM or something crazy like that, then you're going to probably eat up your credits fairly soon. But even with that, what you want to do is have a little bit for VM space and a little bit for that we're going to use for deploying websites and stuff like that. The other thing we're going to use Azure for in this course is we're going to use it for data storage, right? We're going to actually deploy a database out there that we're going to use, right? As opposed to having something local. Okay, so you see it works locally, right? It works locally. I'm just going to, and it sees like it's trying to deploy insights events. I'm just going to stop debugging. And what I'm going to do, it says I haven't really changed. I just want to make sure that from a changes perspective, when I scroll down, there's nothing that's excluded. So everything is really, there's no on-track files, so everything works. I'm going to make a change though. So let's, if I go, because this is part of what we're doing today too. Part of what we're going to be talking about today is this idea of our controller, right? So here is, there's views and controllers. We're talking about Mvc pattern, right? So one of our views, if you look at our views for our home page, and if I go to our index.cshtml, this is our view. We're going to talk about views next week, right? If you notice, we have some details here, and I'm just going to change some of these details. Instead of ASP.NET in our Jumbotron, which was, again, this is using our Bootstrap, right? I'm going to just change this from ASP.NET to Tom's Web App. It's a simple change. It's coming.
So, did you have to turn on anything on Azure besides the VM to get your website published to Azure websites?
No.
Okay. So, like, our dollar account can pretty much go solely towards
Websites
like,
or VMs
yeah.
or whatever you want.
But like by default, like right now we're just paying for the VM. We didn't have to set. Like,
That was free. So look, so see where it says free? We don't pay for that. Unless we have actual usage. If there's a lot of usage, that's where this pay-as-you-go money goes into it. Like if I have a lot of traffic, they're going to charge you, right? But right now to deploy a website costs nothing because there's no traffic initially. Then you can go back and you go into your dashboard on the website and you can scale up how many instances and all that kind of stuff. We haven't done that, right? All we've done is deployed a single instance of your website. I'm going to turn this. I'm going to open this up again a little bit. Oof. Kill myself. All right. Let's see if I can. I'll do another commit. So I've changed my one piece of my my view here, right? So I'm going to say modified view index.chhtml and commit, and then I'm going to go home and unsync commits and sync. So now I've changed something, right? This should auto deploy to Azure. Hopefully it'll work this time around. And see how it's deploying again, right? So as soon as I make a change, and this is why I'm saying Jean-Luc would like this, because it's a watch feature, right? So you do something right from your GitHub or whatever, Bitbucket, whatever, what have you, and as soon as you make a change, as soon as you update your repo, your remote repo, it connects and updates your website, which is, to me, pretty slick, yeah.
Now, on your settings, on your Team Explorer, to get GitHub to come up, what do you, could you show me that again?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Actually, you can. What you can do. Well, this is. I'll wait till this is. It's running the deployment command. Hopefully, it will deploy this time and not crap out for whatever reason. I'm not sure why I did that the first time. Again, it's because I think it's because I'm up here talking to you guys instead of like trying it at home, kiddies, right? This kind of thing, right? Otherwise, it worked fine this morning when I did it. I was working just fine. Let's do what Jeff is saying. So how did I do that thing? Well, remember that some of the options that we have, and if I go into tools, right, options, and if I go down into source control, right, if you notice, I'm using the Microsoft Git Provider source control option. You can choose none or Visual Studio Team Foundation Server. Obviously, I don't want to use this right now. I like to use Git Provider, right? Now, the reason why I'm seeing this is because when I deployed my my site, I chose add to source control, and then when it came, there was a dialog that came up that says, you know, do you want to go Team Foundation Server or you want to pick Git? And then I chose Git as a default with a little checkbox. Once I did that, now it's been added to source control. My whole project is added to source control, and I'm able to do the commits and all that kind of stuff. If your project isn't added to source control, then what you have to do is you have to go to the actual solution itself, right-click, and then you can say add solution to source control. There's going to be another option here to add solution to source control manually, and what this does is you can set up your solution provider. All right, let's see if it actually deployed this time with any luck. I don't have luck at all today for some reason. And it could be different reasons why it's not deploying, right? This is my site. So it actually hooks into GitHub nicely, right? And I mean, again, I haven't done anything different here than we did before. I'm certainly deploying, right?
It'll give you a log if you hit the little arrow there.
There's a reason why, right? Which area are you talking about? This one?
Little arrow there. Yeah. And then running deployment command.
And this is probably what did it for me. Yeah. That's the problem. So 3.00 of package bootstrap, it wasn't able to find this. I guess when I created my site, unable to find version 3.22 of package Microsoft ASP.NET Razor, right? So it's on my end. So when I first deployed, for whatever reason, when I created my app, I made an MVC.NET application. Somehow my creation in Visual Studio went wrong, and that's why it's causing this issue, right? Because that's all built-in stuff. I don't manually deploy Bootstrap or the Razor view engine. The Razor view engine is the one that we use for MVC.NET, right? It's the default view engine. We'll talk about view engines later on, right? But at the end of the day, you know, that somehow or another that wasn't deployed, and that's why we're getting this issue. Funny enough though, when we ran it locally, it runs, so that the information is actually there. It somehow did not get deployed to GitHub. Of course, it has to work that way when we're doing stuff. If I go back to this, right? I know it's always like that. And if I go here to this, let's see what kind of error it spits out when I actually try the site. It's going to do this again, right? And the reason for it is if it's not running, the good thing about Microsoft is if you have a problem, you'll get this, which is good. I mean, although some people liken this, I've read on the forum, some people liken this to the blue screen of death, right? Sorry to say that, but.
Well, it's also just, it's never changed anything. If it doesn't build properly, it doesn't update. It won't deploy a broken solution.
Which is just like any other web deployment solution, right?
So that's just the default. It's not even a blue screen of death. Nothing's been updated ever.
I'm going to try it again because I'm a diehard, right? And I want to be able to show you guys that you know, you can't give up with this kind of stuff. It's not enough to do that. So I'm going to do it. So I'm going to create a very simple web app this time around. So I'm going to go File, Close Solution, right? And I'm going to go File, New, Project. And this time, when I deploy ASP.NET Web Application, we'll call this Tom's Web App 3. I'm gonna have to destroy these things eventually on GitHub, but who cares? So this is where I clicked it, Jeff. Take a look. Create new Git repository. You would see here, create add solution to source control. Right? That's what you would do it right here, right in the beginning. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want to do this telemetry right here, right? So I want to kind of turn this off. So if I don't want this new application insights resource, right? I mean I can basically say no, I don't want this, right? And I can configure settings, right? And if I don't want to, I can. I mean I should be able to turn it off or log out, right? It tries to do it automatically for me because it's supposed to help, right? I'll leave it on for now because it seems to be something that's defaulted. I'm going to go OK for this one, and this time I'm going to make it empty, an empty website, right? And I'm not going to deploy directly to Azure again. I'm going to go OK and let it deploy. In here, instead of it deploying the scaffold, it's still going to try and do its telemetry, but there's nothing to telemetrize, if you will, right? It's still going to add in its references. All it's doing is adding references to the package, and it's installing anything new that I'm missing. So it can do this insights application telemetry stuff, right? But for now, what I want to do is I want to go right-click while this is doing that. I can continue to work. And I want to add an HTML page. And this time I'll call it index.html manually. So there was index.html. And here I'll make it I'll give it a title of Hello World. Right? And again, I want to create an H1 tag with Hello World, right? The Hello World project. There we go. And then when I've done that, I'll save, right? And I'm going to create, of course, on the other side, I've got to create a GitHub repo. And I apologize for the size of my screen, but it's because I'm plugged into the projector. So here's my GitHub repo. I'm going to make a new one, right? Just because I'm a diehard, like I said. And who cares, right? So Tom's web app 3. That's new. Create my repository. There we go. I can grab this URI. And from there, that I know it's there, go back into Visual Studio. Again, this is all online. And we're going to go into Team Explorer, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to add changes. Now again, I'm pretty positive there's nothing else that's been added, so I'm going to say created base project, and commit. And then I'm going to go home and go unsync commits. Actually, you know what? I probably don't need this properties right now, so let's just kill it. I can always get back to it later. That was weird. And then what I want to do is paste and publish. Okay, cool. So I've done that now. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did last time with Azure. So I'm going to kind of minimize, go back to Azure, create yet another web app, stop this one. Right? Not that it matters, but I'll stop it. All right, there we go. And what I'll do is, and I'm leaving this here, I'll clean it up later on. Just from a time perspective, I'm going to make a new one. Again, to see it again, I'm going to go to quick create, and we'll call it Tom's Web App 3. Hopefully that'll be good enough. Yes, it is. It's definitely east to west. I want to change this. There's different subscription services. I've already created one for. Well, that's why I had a problem. That's why I had a problem, because I chose web forms application. I'm going to go with my default one. That's the problem. That's what I made. I made those, and I made them for anyways, I'll talk about that later. It's a default forms application that I made. And I'm not making a forms application. I made the MVC application, so I had to create a new service, which I didn't do, and that's why it failed. Whew. Okay, now I know the reason why it failed now. Yeah. All right, anyways, so let's go back. So I've got this thing running. I'm going to go into my dashboard, go into integrate source control, go into GitHub, click next. It's going to connect, authorize me. And then I can choose my Tom's Web App 3. Here it is, Tom's Web App 3, and deploy. And let's minimize this stuff right here. And when I do that, hopefully this will be a little bit faster because there's nothing to deploy. It's only an index.html page for, and it's running a deployment script. No, it's got to work. There's nothing here now. I can't say I don't have this, I don't have that. I'm not missing anything anymore, right? It's a dumb index.html page with no CSS, nothing, right? So that would be bad. Don't say that. Mike, don't say that. You're cursing me, man. Cursing me. Curses.
I think that was the point.
No, don't do it, man. Are you saying good things now? This is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
I'm thinking positive.
So it'll come up. But I think the thing I want you to look at when we do this deployment is what's the advantage? Why do I want to do this way as opposed to the other way? And I think the great thing is it's a watch kind of deployment.
So it watches the remote repository?
Correct. So any change I make, yeah, it is. So any change you make to your remote repository automatically get deployed on your website. Now that may not be what you want because you may want to have a staging area, right? So we want to be able to do that, and you can do that too. You can set up a staging area where I swap out my current with the current the one that's in production right now with the staging area and make that the production one. We can do those as well. And in order for you to do that, you have to create another instance. So you have two instances of the same website. One of them is for staging. You call it staging. The other one is deployment. And what you do is you swap those two instances. You make just the point. It points to a different instance. Right? You can do that as well. You can watch whatever branch you want, and so you can update your staging area and then swap your staging area, and then you're good to go, right? So this is from a workflow perspective, we're trying to talk about workflows here. So think about it, the traditional workflow we had before, right? Before the web, this whole cloud thing or whatever. It'd be like this, right? You make your website, you create your staging area, you FTP to it, you update it, and when it's done, right? Now you take that staging area, you copy all the files, pretty much, and you put it onto your deployment area, right? And then I don't know why it failed.
Just to touch on what I was saying about like the webhooks and stuff like
Yeah.
that, if you really want to get into it, you can like set specific criteria that you can pass before it actually is deployed. Sort of tie in the API, you know what I'm talking about? You can go into the GitHub webhooks.
There's all kinds of
You
stuff.
can figure that to hit with the REST API to actually deploy something like that, if you really want that control or need that control.
This is see this here, guys. I would totally talk to. This is where I would call Microsoft. This one here. I'll call Microsoft and say, hey, listen, I'm doing this deployment, and I've got a simple site that I was trying to deploy directly from GitHub, and I'm getting an issue. Can you recommend what the problem is? And they would support you. They'll call you up, and they would give you some answers on why it's working the way it's working. One great thing is about this, it talks about my stuff. So, for example, if I can look at some past action that I have for any one of my sites. I can take a look at stats. That's what the monitor thing is. Any kind of deployments I've done with Web App 3, let's say, even though it failed, it'll show me all my deployments, right, when they were deployed. Like this one obviously there's only one that's currently on, and it's failing. And it's failing because it's missing stuff that I should get right from GitHub. Just as a point of testing, and not because I want to appease Steven and tell him he's right. Right? I don't want to say it this way. I'm going to try it with my local Visual Studio. Okay? I'm gonna no. I got to do it because you know what? Just like I said to John earlier today, when you're right, John. Right? So if I have a problem, if I have this problem here up here, you're going to get this problem later on, and you're going to go, Tom, and you're going to send me 1 million emails. I don't want that. So worst case scenario, guess what?
Are you deploying the wrong folder? Like you're deploying
No.
a solution scope, or like do you need to go down the folder level to deploy that?
No, I don't have to do any of that. Like I said, it was that easy before. Literally.
Well, plus even that deployment should still succeed. It just that when you loaded it, wouldn't know how to do it.
That's correct. So let's take a look, right? So here's my, because I'm not doing anything, right? I'm just not. So here's my, it's the same look that I'm getting, but I'm here in my VM, my local VM, and I'm going to run Visual Studio 2013 locally, and I'll do the same thing, right? So here I am, right? I go to new project, and this time I've made a ASP.NET Web Forms with Bootstrap kind of template that I'm going to use, and we're going to call this Tom's Web App 4, right? Locally, no changes. This one's a little bit more complex. It uses web forms. So if anything, it'll have more problems, right, than the other one. The index.html had nothing, right? I don't have application telemetry turned on, right, on this one. And if you look at my Solution Explorer, right, it's a very simple web app. If I press play in Chrome, right, as an example, my web app looks like this. Bootstrap with a kind of a login page. When I click login, it says thank you for logging in, right? Very easy. Okay, so that's all it does. So now I'm going to do that one. I need to create a repo on GitHub just to make it simple. I'll create another one the same way. Again, this takes 2 seconds to do, and I have to clean my stuff up later on. So Tom's, and I was working perfectly this morning. I did the exact same steps, no difference. Web app 5. There you go. Or is it 4? I can't remember. 4. Yeah, 4. Okay, good. Grab the URI, copy, go to Visual Studio. Now you can see the speed is a little better. I'm going to go stop, go into Team Explorer here, go to Home, Changes. I'm going to say, making sure that there's nothing that's untracked. Everything is tracked. I'll say created project from templates. Sure, commits, Home, unsync commits, and in here I put in my URI and publish. So speed's a little better here. Okay, I've got my URI, and now I'm going to go into Visual Studio, or sorry, into Azure. I'm going to go back into Web Apps, which I have 10 of them. One of them, these two are running. I'm going to stop running this one, and I'm going to just launch a new one. We'll do the same thing. Quick create. I'll make this Tom's Web App 4, right? So hopefully that's good. Instead of the East US, this is good, and it's Azure Pass. This is good. Default. I'm using the default app service plan. Okay, create it. And when we're done, right, it's going to create there's the container, right? I'm going to go into the dashboard, go down to set up deployments, click GitHub, click next, and then it'll choose my repository, which is Tom's Web App 4, which is way down here, right? There it is, and deploy. It's the same thing. I'm just deploying locally as opposed to in a VM. There's no difference. All right? My version of Visual Studio is Visual Studio 2013 Ultimate with Update 4 and the latest version of Azure SDK. Done. Of course it's going to work well. Stephen, you're right. So deploy locally, guys.
Steven, no.
That's the way it is. I didn't do anything different. Nothing. Well, I just did it. Push. No. I'm saying when you use Visual Studio, right? The reason why it didn't work, right, is because I created my project locally, right, and I pushed to GitHub, and then GitHub pushed to Azure. No problem, right? This is what I did this round, right? The round before I created my project in the cloud with Visual Studio Community version, and then I deployed to GitHub. Something got messed up, right, with my creation of my project. It could be the telemetry. That's what I'm guessing where it is. It's the only difference. One has the telemetry, the other one has no telemetry. I've turned it off, right? And one fails, the other one succeeds. There's no other difference. I haven't done anything different here, right? Okay, let's test this out. This is where this is the result I wanted to show you, but in the cloud. And I'll probably fix that next time when I will investigate to see what that was, and I'll come up with a solution for it. All right, so go back, and here I'm running, here's my web app 4, right? So you can see that it's running on the cloud, Tom's web app 4, azurewebsites.net, and very simple login, whatever. And now I want to make a change. So instead of ASP.NET page, we'll call it Tom's web app. We'll just change that in Visual Studio. So I go back to my Solution Explorer. I go back to my default ASP.x file. Right here it is. And then instead of what it says here, ASP.NET page, I'll change this to Tom's web app 4. I'll save it. I'll go to Team Explorer. I'll go to Changes, and I'll say modified default page. Right? Commit. Home, unsync commits, sync. And when I do that, and I go back to my site, right? So let's see how long it takes to push it. I haven't even checked it. I'll just refresh this one. I'll go back actually and refresh it. And when I do, Tom's web app 4. So literally, it's a one-step process as opposed to a multi-stage process. Which to me, if it's desirable, if that's what you want, it's another method of deployment compared to, of course, someone's going to call me when I'm working. It just happens every time. As opposed to the multi-stage process or whatever, and it might suit you, might suit this method of deployment. So I think for now, if we do until further notice, because I haven't been able to get it working myself, and you guys can try it out in your VMs. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think for now, if you create your app locally and deploy to Azure, that's fine, right? I'd like you to try and work with VM, but this is the kind of stuff I want to learn. I want to learn why I'm having a problem with using Azure in the cloud, right? Why am I having a problem with Visual Studio in the cloud compared to Visual Studio locally? Okay, and that's this one. Let's talk about, after this, I'm just going to stop this and talk about controllers a little bit.